So recently got this Raspberry Pi retro gaming kit, and you know they refer to it as a retro Pi setup. So I've got a couple of these controllers, power supply with a switch on it. That's your HDMI cable for the monitor. And the case. You can see that, yeah. With the fan on it. Kind of looks like an old, maybe a Nintendo case for anyone that old. And got my, it's a Raspberry Pi 3, which I'm good with. I recently purchased a Raspberry Pi 4 and ended up having it fail very quickly. So, and part of that, I'm getting off topic here, but anyway, that's a Raspberry Pi 3, more than enough to do this job. And that's my 32 gigabyte flash with noobs and retro. Not sure what that is. Maybe more games. Oh, and this is what is particularly good. User guide. But in this kit here, you actually have what appears to be heatsink grease. Let me see. I may have to read it. Yep. Alright, so it's got heatsink compound paste. Excuse me. So the problem I had with the Raspberry Pi 4, which is, where did I put it? Yeah, I can't find it at the moment. Anyway, I managed to damage the Raspberry Pi 4. I believe the reason was because it overheated one of the chips. And because on the chips, the cooling, so that there is a little tiny heatsink. You see that? Nope. There you can. Little tiny heatsink, and they're meant to stick onto the chip, and it's meant to cool, you know, I guess the main processor plus some of the other chips that are in there. And I think what happened with the Raspberry Pi 4, it's got this little cheapo double-sided tape on it, and that tape actually created an insulative barrier, which means it actually made the chip heat up worse. So I think first thing you want to do, like this one, I do have thermal grease, and I also purchased some actual heatsink glue, which is what I'm probably going to use from now on whenever I build a Raspberry Pi. So, put that aside, I'll pause this for a minute. Okay, did a little bit more looking into this. Found this is a Raspberry Pi 4, the heat sink's on there, and what they came with was this double-sided tape. I don't think it works. Had a lot of other internet comments about the same deal. So I have ordered some thermal glue, which is I think it's a silicon base, but it's meant to conduct the heat from the chip to the heatsink and then away, of course, from the motherboard. So I've got a 32 gig. That's the main. I think of it as a startup drive, and this here is apparently got all your different games on it, if I understand. Anyway, I'm going to play with that after I get going and see what I've got. So I'm not going to use this heatsink paste, but it's good that they're actually starting to include it. So I think that was a weak point. So what I'm going to do is actually take off this backing, and I'm going to clean that back down to bare aluminium, and before I use the grease on it. Get all this sticky stuff off. Now the difference between a Raspberry Pi 3, obviously, and the Raspberry Pi 4, obviously I'm guessing the Raspberry Pi 4 is a much faster processor, probably can do better games or more powerful processing jobs. But the reason I originally bought the Raspberry Pi 4 was because it had a faster Wi-Fi capability. So if I wanted to watch such as a YouTube video on the Raspberry Pi 3, it was very clunky. It was having trouble downloading it fast enough to stream video, but the Raspberry Pi 4 is supposed to be able to do that. So anyway, after I got this Raspberry Pi 3 gaming setup going, I'm going to also set up a Raspberry Pi 4 and reset up a Raspberry Pi 4 to be able to use it as a streaming platform, I guess, watching videos. Okay, so I've got that metal cleaned off, and I'm just going to put some of this heatsink glue on it. Don't want to put too much on, I guess. It needs to be fairly thin. And fortunately with this gaming kit, they gave you a little spatula to smooth it out, get good coverage. The first one, you see that? Yeah, this is the main processor, I guess, in the Raspberry Pi 3. I'm just going to stick that on. Press too hard. And then I've got one more to do. Little tiny one. Anyway, and that's going to go there. Not sure what that is for, but probably for communications. Maybe that's the Wi-Fi. I don't know. But I do know it needs a heatsink on it. Okay, so I'll pause that. Okay. Next bit, so you want to set your flash drive in there. It's 32 gigabyte that came with this kit. Slides in there as such. Then with the case, it's pretty obvious you've got those 4 holes there, and you can get an idea where everything's supposed to go by the side of the case. It's all pretty obvious. You just slide that in. Make sure these holes align, and then you have the top of the case. Now, according to the instructions, with the fan, you've got a quiet mode and a full power mode. I want to go to the full power mode because I'm using this for gaming. I'm assuming it's going to use a little bit of processor power there. So I want to get the black wire onto pin number 14 and the red wire onto pin number 2, and like I said, it does a pretty good job of explaining everything for you. Alright, there's the red wire onto pin number 2. Pin number 14's not as easier to identify, so you kind of got to count up. There's no markings on the board for which pin it is, but you can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and that's where the black one goes. Alright, and then it's just a matter of line this piece straight on top. There we go. And you're ready to put the screws in through here. And where'd the screws go? Here's some. There we go. So then I just got to screw those in. Okay, now get ready to set it up and get the actual computer running, download the, I think it's Raspberry or something or other. So, I'm going to want a mouse. I don't think I'm going to need the controller yet. But I will probably need a keyboard. And here I have the audio, the video, HDMI goes to the monitor in the background, and then I need my power supply, which is that one there, which is a USB cable. So that's all plugged in. I think it's loading up. See the monitor in the background. Noobs version 3.3. Now, I'm not a computer nerd, so I think so. This is Noobs. This is the program that's used to load your operating system. So I've got a few choices here. Alright, I've got to see which one I want. So it looks like got Raspberry in full. Libre something or other. And Retro Pi. Alright. Pause that for a sec. Okay, so I managed to connect to my Wi-Fi. Believe it or not, I forgot my password there for a bit. And so originally there was 3 different choices, and I guess these were originally loaded on that card. But once I connected to Wi-Fi, all of a sudden I had all these other options. There's at least 3 retro gaming consoles available. Honestly, I don't know which one's the best for me. And so I might have to just experiment. Windows 10. Okay. Yeah, these little Raspberry Pis are amazing what you can do. Alright, let's just go with the Retro Pi, since that's what I bought. Can't install multiple ones, can you? Well, you can install multiple somehow. Okay, there it is. Warning, this will install the selected operating systems. All existing data on the drive will be overwritten, including any operating systems that are already installed. I guess that's yes. I'm going to install the Raspberry Pi, so the Retro Pi. There it goes. Alright, this will take a little while. You don't need to watch all this. Alright, so now I'm going to configure the gamepad, and I'm just going to try as best I can to replicate what's there. So D up, D down, D left, D right, start, select, east, and left shoulder up there, right shoulder, and then hold any button to skip. Skip, skip, skip. So now I'm just holding any button and skipping down through it. Okay. Okay. Now it's doing something else. It says configuration. Down there it says start, go to menu. Can't quite work out what I'm supposed to be doing here. Alright, pause that while I try and work it out. Okay, so got the Retro Pi set up. Something I was surprised about so I thought I was just going to plug everything in and it would straight away have all the games on it. But with the Retro Pi, you have to download all your ROMs onto this USB flash drive, and then that gives you access to them through the Retro Pi gaming system. And so yeah, it took me a little bit to work that out. Basically, you have to wherever you get your ROMs from, whether it's from an old game that you own, or whether you download free ones, off the internet, or buy them however else, you can you save them onto the flash drive. If they're zipped, which they probably are, you need to unzip them, and then there's all these separate folders in that flash drive, and each one of those folders corresponds with a different type of game. For example, you've got old arcade games, you've got Game Boy Advance, and there's a lot of other ones as well. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm just going to select a game, old SpongeBob. My kids used to love this. Okay, so that's loading up. Yeah, but once you've got the ROMs installed, it's pretty easy to play the games, and you can literally get thousands of games for these Retro Pis. There's many hours of enjoyment, especially if you've got younger kids, I guess. Now, what else am I going to show you? If it's going to take forever. Anyway, you get the idea. Lots of old games from lots of different systems. I'll turn that off. Something else you can do, across the screen here, is you can actually buy these SD cards with preloaded games. So that's what I'm going to show you here. Power back on. And then that gives you access to, thousands of games without the hassle of having to download every single one. Download or transfer over. Lots of places that sell them. You find them through Amazon. Skip that up. I guess I'm going to have to wait through that. At the beginning of this, on this card, when it's loading up, you have all these, snippets of old games and graphics. Some of the music's kind of cool. Reminds you of the old arcade games, like arcade days, where you'd get Yep, and there it is. This is one of my favorite games when I was a kid. I was never very good at it. Let's see. Oh, I've got to press start. Whoop, forgot to jump. Let's find the jump. There it is. Who doesn't remember this? Alright, that's enough. Lots of fun. And then when you're finished with your Retro Pi, of other things you can do with it. Now, something that's kind of popular at the moment is is what they call a ham pie, and I just dropped my card inside the case. There it is. Alright, let's try this again. Okay, and this is a ham pie, I think. Oh, I don't need this anymore. I should have pulled it out already. Don't need that. Now, all right, that's the ham pie. So, ham pie's got a lot of features on it that honestly I don't even know what half of them are yet. One of the things it does have that I use a lot is system tools, ham radio. One that I use a lot of is this chirp. What chirp does, it allows you to program all the different radios that you may use as a ham operator. So here I've got a Baofeng UV5R. I'm going to program a few more of those today. Just trying to work this out so you can see it. Alright, doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's the UV5R, and I'm going to clone it. So I want to download from radio, and I'm not sure, it's probably this one. Got to select the port, got to select the manufacturer and the model number. And there we go. It's now cloning. So what that means is it's copying all the settings and files, well, files or frequencies off this radio, and it's putting them onto, into the chirp. So that means I can then take a brand new UV5R and upload to radio. So I'm taking the files and frequencies from here and I'm uploading them to a new radio. So it means you can very quickly, everything's still the same. That should be. Oh, damn it. I did not turn the radio on. So now that I turn the radio on, full volume. Let's try that again. There we go. That's now uploading to radio. And you can see a little green light flashing. Tells you it's in the upload mode. Yeah, so these a little retro Pi kit that I had, it's got a lot of other uses, and in truth it'll probably get used more for ham pie than anything else.